Welcome. We'd like to start, as we always do, with a moment of silence for all those who have given their lives in the cause of Irish freedom. Thanks. My name is Mavis McGettrick, and first of all, I'd like to thank the Cayley Club for allowing us to use the hall. It's a great facility, and we're very lucky to be able to access it. There will be music in the pub downstairs tonight with Tim Kahane. Is that who it is? Yeah. And everyone's invited. There's a table in the back with raffle tickets. Please try to support that if you can. The funds raised help defray the cost of the music in the pub. Tickets are $6 for $5. This is another in a series of lectures sponsored by the 1916 Committee. The committee was formed around 2014 to begin planning activities to mark the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. Lectures designed to look at different aspects of the Rising, and several fundraisers were held prior to the anniversary. On April 24th, 2016, a plaque was unveiled at the site of the Rhode Island Irish Famine Memorial. The plaque reads, "This plaque commemorates the 100th anniversary of Ireland's 1916 Easter Rising. During that armed insurrection in Dublin and other parts of the country against British colonial rule, Ireland was proclaimed a sovereign, independent republic. The Rising failed, and in its aftermath, 16 of its leaders were executed by the British. Those deaths inspired resistance, which eventually secured independence for 26 counties in 1922. In 2016, 6 counties in the north of Ireland still remain under British rule. Here we pay tribute to the martyrs of 1916. We also honor all those people who have suffered persecution, exile, imprisonment, and death for the cause of a free, united Irish Republic." So when that was completed, we thought that would be the end of the 1916 Committee. However, we in the group and people who had come to our lectures thought that we should continue with our educational work. So we broadened our focus to include other aspects of Irish history. Tonight, we will take a look at a pivotal event, the Great Famine. First of all, I want to go on record as saying that, of course, with the limited time we have, this is not an exhaustive look at the famine. Nor are we experts in the field. Right, Pat?
Absolutely.
Pat Brady and I took a suggestion from the group, researched it, and tonight we're here to present to you what we found. And we would like to invite anyone else who would like to do that to join us. If you have some piece of Irish history that you have a particular interest in and would like to present it, we'd love it. Come to one of our meetings, we'll get you on the schedule. After Pat and I have finished, Marie McGee is going to discuss Brexit, which is a more contemporary issue facing Ireland. All that being said, let's get started. As you can imagine, the famine was a very complex occurrence in Irish history, and deciding exactly what to concentrate on was daunting. The possibilities are limitless. I thought that it might be interesting to compare what life was like in Ireland before the famine to what it was like during the famine. Like I said, I'm certainly not an expert in Irish history, and I was kind of hoping to find out that life in Ireland prior to 1845 was good, that the people were doing okay, many living on and thriving on family farms until the blight hit. Sadly, this was not the case. The Ireland that I found in my research was not the Ireland I had hoped to read about. According to the website historyplace.com, in 1798, inspired by the American and French revolutions, the Irish staged a major rebellion against British rule. Widespread hangings and floggings soon followed as the rebellion was brutally squashed. The English army in Ireland also increased to nearly 100,000 men. 2 years later, the British Act of Union made Ireland a part of the United Kingdom. The act abolished the 500-year-old independent Irish Parliament in Dublin and placed the country under the jurisdiction of Britain's Imperial Parliament at Westminster, England. Although Ireland was to be represented there by 100 members, Catholics were excluded. Anti-Catholic prohibitions dated back to 1695, when the British began imposing a series of penal laws designed to punish the Irish for supporting the Catholic Stuart king, James II, in his battle to ascend the British throne in place of the Protestant William of Orange. With an Irish Catholic army at his side, James II had been defeated at the Battle of the Boyne in July 1690. The resulting penal laws stripped Irish Catholics of their rights, including the ability to serve as an officer in the British Army or Navy, to hold any government office, to vote, to buy land, to practice law, to attend school, to serve an apprenticeship, to possess weapons, and to practice their religion. The Catholic Church was outlawed. The Gaelic language banned. Export trade was forbidden as Irish commerce and industry were deliberately destroyed. With 80% of Ireland being Catholic, the penal laws were intended to degrade the Irish so severely that they would never again be in a position to seriously threaten Protestant rule. In 1600, Protestants had owned just 10% of Ireland's land. By 1778, Protestants owned 95% of the land. When a Catholic landowner died, the estate was divided up equally among all of his sons, diluting the value. However, if any son renounced Catholicism and became a Protestant, he automatically inherited all of his father's property. Various penal laws remained in effect for 140 years until Catholic emancipation occurred in 1829, largely through the efforts of Daniel O'Connell, a brilliant Catholic lawyer from County Kerry. But by the time of emancipation, Ireland had become a nation laid low. The French sociologist Gustave de Beaumont visited Ireland in 1835 and wrote, quote, "I have seen the Indian in his forests and the Negro in his chains, and thought, as I contemplated their pitiable condition, that I saw the very extreme of human wretchedness. But I did not know then the condition of unfortunate Ireland. In all countries, more or less, paupers may be discovered, but an entire nation of paupers is what was never seen until it was shown in Ireland," end quote. By the mid-1800s, many high-minded English politicians and social reformers began to think that Ireland was a nation in need of transformation, that its people now needed to be yanked into the modern world by tossing out the old Gaelic traditions. To the industrious, ambitious British, their rural Irish neighbors seemed to be an alien, rebellious, backward people stuck in an ancient agrarian past. English reformers hoped to remake the Irish in their own image, thus ending Ireland's cycle of poverty and misfortune in an era when poverty was thought to be caused by bad moral character. Potatoes are not native to Ireland, but likely originated in the Andes Mountains of Peru, South America. In the early 1500s, Spanish conquerors found the Incas growing the vegetable, which the Spanish called patata. They were taken back to Europe and eventually reached England, where the name changed to potato. About 1590, potatoes were introduced to Ireland, where farmers quickly discovered that they thrived in their country's cool, moist soil with very little labor. An acre of fertilized potato field could yield up to 12 tons of potatoes, enough to feed a family of 6 for a year, with leftovers going to the family's animals. By the 1800s, the potato had become the staple crop in the poorest regions. More than 3 million Irish peasants subsisted solely on the vegetable, which is rich in protein, carbohydrates, minerals, and vitamins such as riboflavin, niacin, and vitamin C. It is possible to stay healthy on a diet of potatoes alone. The Irish often drank a little buttermilk with their meal and sometimes used salt, cabbage, and fish as seasoning. Irish peasants were actually healthier than peasants in England or Europe, where bread, far less nutritious, was the staple food. Planting occurred in the spring, beginning around St. Patrick's Day. Most of the poor Irish grew a variety known as lumpers, a high-yielding but less nutritious potato that didn't mature until September or October. Every year for the poor, July and August were the hungry months, as the previous year's crop became inedible and the current crop wasn't quite ready for harvest. This was the yearly summer hunger, also called meal months, referring to oat or barley meal bought from price gouging dealers out of necessity. During the summer hunger, women and children from the poorest families resorted to begging along the roadside, while the men sought temporary work in the harvest fields of England. By autumn, the potatoes were ready to be harvested, carefully stored in pits, and eaten during the long winter into the spring and early summer. The Irish consumed an estimated 7 million tons in this way each year. The system worked year after year, and the people were sustained as long as the potato crop didn't fail. Then in 1845, the unthinkable occurred. The crop did indeed fail. The famine began quite mysteriously in September 1845, as leaves on potato plants suddenly turned black and curled, then rotted, seemingly the result of a fog that had wafted across the fields of Ireland. The cause was actually an airborne fungus originally transported into the holes of ships traveling from North America to England. Winds from southern England carried the fungus to the countryside around Dublin. The blight spread throughout the fields as fungal spores settled on the leaves of healthy potato plants, multiplied, and were carried in the millions by cool breezes to surrounding plants. Under ideal moist conditions, which we know there are plenty of that in Ireland, a single infected potato plant could infect thousands more in just a few days. The attacked plants fermented while providing the nourishment the fungus needed to live, emitting a nauseous stench as they blackened and withered in front of the disbelieving eyes of Irish peasants. There had been crop failures in the past due to weather and other diseases, but this strange new failure was unlike anything ever seen. Potatoes dug out of the ground at first looked edible, but shriveled and rotted within days. The potatoes had been attacked by the same fungus that had destroyed the plant leaves above ground. In England, religious-minded social reformers viewed the blight as a heaven-sent blessing that would finally provide an opportunity to transform Ireland, ending the cycle of poverty resulting from the people's mistaken dependence on the potato. With the threat of starvation looming, British Prime Minister Robert Peel made a courageous political decision to advocate repeal of England's long-standing corn laws. The protectionist laws had been enacted in 1815 to artificially keep up the price of British-grown grain by imposing heavy tariffs on all imported grain. Under the corn laws, the large amounts of cheap foreign grain now needed for Ireland would be prohibitively expensive. However, English gentry and politicians reacted with outrage at the mere prospect of losing their long-cherished price protections. The political furor in Britain surrounding Peel's decision quickly overshadowed any concern for the consequences of the crop failure in Ireland. In deciding their course of action during the famine, British government officials and administrators rigidly adhered to the popular theory of the day known as laissez-faire, meaning let it be, which advocated a hands-off policy in the belief that all problems would eventually be solved on their own through natural means. Great efforts were thus made to sidestep social problems and avoid any interference with private enterprise or the rights of property owners. Throughout the entire famine period, the British government would never provide massive food aid to Ireland under the assumption that English landowners and private businesses would have been unfairly harmed by resulting food price fluctuations. In adhering to laissez-faire, the British government also did not interfere with the English-controlled export business in Irish-grown grains. Throughout the famine years, large quantities of native-grown wheat, barley, oats, and oatmeal sailed out of places such as Limerick and Waterford for England, even though local Irish were dying of starvation. Irish farmers, desperate for cash, routinely sold the grain to the British in order to pay the rent on their farms and thus avoid eviction. To illustrate the lengths to which this laissez-faire policy was enacted, we'd like to show a short video. It's going to be difficult for you. There's some wording on the screen. It's going to be difficult for you to read all the words, but I'm going to summarize it when it's finished.
and a new main road, and try to keep the truth down, it shall be known. And the time will come when the public and the world will be able to estimate at its proper value your management of the affairs of Ireland.
I know it's hard to read, but this is some of what the wording was. There was enough food in Ireland to feed double its population. In 1845, over 400,000 bushels of corn were exported from Ireland to England. In 1845, 750,000 sheep were exported from Ireland to England. In 1847, 1 million gallons of butter were sent to England. The British government upheld the right of landlords to evict Irish families during the famine, even in the dead of winter. Landlords were more likely to pay passage for the Irish on coffin ships rather than continue to pay taxes for them to be in workhouses. It is estimated that there were approximately 1.5 million famine-related deaths in Ireland between 1846 and 1851, and about another 1 million people emigrated. Taxes and rent continued to be collected. Food continued to be exported to England. It is believed that the estimated value surpassed £6 million. It's pretty clear in considering these statistics that the establishment in general, and the government in particular, failed to lessen the effects of the famine on the Irish people. Now I'm going to turn it over to Pat Brady, who is going to discuss another systemic method that was used to further the suffering of the Irish people at their worst time in history.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Pat. Yeah, we don't need that. Till he's done.
Can everybody hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Good. I'm going to talk about superism. I'll get into that term a little later. Tonight's talk, you'll be hearing the terms proselytize and evangelize. And you'll probably be hearing them a little too often, but anyway. I don't want to lose you on them, and in this lecture, both proselytize and evangelize refer to the attempt to convert someone from Catholicism to Protestantism. Soup kitchens began to appear in Ireland in the winter of 1846. The soup tended to vary in both quality and quantity, but overall the soup kitchens undoubtedly saved lives, particularly after the Quakers began opening them up in Cork in 1846. The Quakers collected food and money in America as well as in England, and had managed to come up with almost 200,000 pounds. That's 200,000 English pounds, not pounds of soup. And they began their soup kitchen endeavors with that, which prompted the British government to bring into operation its most beneficial policy of the entire period of the Great Hunger, and that was the Soup Kitchen Act. The Quakers operated on a large scale. The renowned soup kitchen on Charles Street in Dublin made 2,400 quarts of soup a day in wooden vats. Its soup was distributed twice a day from 7:30 until 9 in the morning and from 12 to 3 in the afternoon. It was sold at a halfpenny a quart, with a piece of bread costing an extra halfpenny. The Quakers also encouraged the more well-to-do to buy soup according to their means, and the Quakers would then distribute it for free to the more destitute. The benevolence of the Quakers during the Great Hunger was long remembered with gratitude in Ireland, but the same could not be said of the government. Their standard soup kitchen provided a quart of soup on every other day, and its caloric value was only 10% of the day's requirement. It still constituted the dominant portion of the diet for those that it fed. Children's needs, of course, involved both maintaining and building their growing bodies, so their caloric deficit had was much greater consequence. The Great Hunger's prime victims were the children, little children, especially infants in the first 12 months of their lives. Drogheda, a coastal city in the north to the north of Dublin, provided soup for some 12,000 people, or 1/4 of its population. The term souperism, that's S-O-U-P-E-R-I-S-M, refers to the strategy developed by Protestant evangelical missionaries that encouraged practicing Catholics to convert to the Protestant faith in order to receive soup allotments during Ireland's worst hunger years of 1845 through 1852. But, and this is the heart of what we're talking about tonight, although there were indeed many people who succumbed to the offer of food and clothing, the offer of survival really, in exchange for religious conversion, there were countless Irish on the brink of starvation who somehow avoided doing so. In the vernacular of the day, they refused to take the soup. Souperism was both religiously and politically based, and Catholics who did succumb were ostracized within the Irish community and labeled with such pejorative terms as jumpers or soupers. Church and public records of the day indicate that converts represented but a small minority of the overall native population in areas where Protestant missionary activity was most intense, although the Anglo-controlled press heralded a wholesale conversion of entire communities. When it appeared that the Great Hunger's crisis years were nearing an end in Ireland after about 1850, and it became known what the evangelicals had been up to in the west of Ireland, there was a predictable backlash within the native Catholic community, and especially within its clergy. Outspoken bishops did not hesitate to use the term extermination when they described what had happened, calling one and the same those who would eliminate Catholic religion through conversion and those who would eliminate Catholic parishioners through starvation. A quid pro quo forced upon Catholic youngsters was their education in an alien religion at the price of their food handouts. These mandates to attend Bible schools, along with the ever-present possibility of a forced eviction and the daily exposure to hellish diseases, were constant tormentors for Irish families. And yet, as with much of recorded Irish history, the iconic picture that we have of the fiendish Protestant ogres withholding cups of soup from dying children held in the arms of their desperate, starving Catholic mothers does not stand alone. Souperism was, in fact, but one piece in a far larger, far more diabolical effort to make Ireland a Protestant country, and was embodied in the English belief that the source of Ireland's social and political problems lay within its ties to the Catholic religion. The Act of Union, passed in England in 1800, partnered the Kingdom of Great Britain with the Kingdom of Ireland to create the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. And although the Republic of Ireland removed itself in 1922, the Act remains the foundation of today's United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And following passage of the original Act, it became an article of faith for evangelical Protestants to have Ireland's Catholics converted, or as they said, to have them brought over to the Protestant faith, and thereby eradicating the main problems bedeviling Irish society, those being economic underdevelopment, lack of respect for the law, and the hatred of the Protestant establishment. New Protestant evangelical societies appeared during the early 1800s, directing their attention at scriptural education and the distribution of Bibles to aid them in bringing over the native Irish. They particularly targeted children and turned Ireland's educational arena into a cultural battleground. The endeavor also had the unexpected effect of reawakening the country's Catholic clergy and sending them onto Ireland's political stage with a passion, uniting priests and their parishioners behind Daniel O'Connell's and the Catholic Association's campaign for Irish emancipation, and establishing a national system of primary schools locally controlled by priests to change the direction of education for Catholic children in Ireland. But the evangelists did not retreat very far. They accepted neither the Catholic Ireland's new emancipation nor the government's funding of its national schools, using both issues to cement the bond between the established ultra-Protestant political faction and the new proselytizers, and promoting the establishment of colonies, or settlements, into Ireland's western counties that would function as both havens for converts and as bases for missionary expansion. Those living on Ireland's west seacoast were vulnerable to conversion. The area was lacking priests who were willing to take on the harsh environment, and Irish, the language of choice for its impoverished native population, was employed by the proselytizers. The Protestant Colonization Society was founded in 1830 by militant evangelical crusaders. They viewed the colonies as virtual petri dishes for testing Protestant standards of cleanliness, industry, and good management. In this society's eyes, the colonies were not just to be used as retreats for persecuted converts, but they would also serve as missionary centers from which the Catholics in the surrounding area could be won over more easily. Colonies soon made their initial appearance in County Donegal and in County Kildare. In Kildare, one colony eventually contained over 100 families. But it was the settlements in Dingle and Achill that proved to be the showpiece of the new Protestant colonization effort. These large-scale operations provided a picture of happy converts enjoying comfortable homes with rent-free lands, and teachers receiving regular salaries along with career opportunities for their children. All of which, of course, angered the native Irish, who knew that these colonists were themselves converts, brought in from other areas of the country, and who had somehow come up with enough money to purchase the best available lands. It was during the scourge of cholera that hit Dingle in 1831 that the term super, S-O-U-P-E-R, was introduced into the popular jargon. Locals also introduced the boycott and the blackball, refusing to buy from them or to sell from them, or to sell to them, rather. The colonies at Achill and Dingle became permanent fixtures on Ireland's western landscape by the 1840s, showcasing cottages, schools, and dispensaries. But seldom a month passed without reports in the Protestant press of Bible readers and preachers being attacked by Catholic natives who were summarily fined or jailed. Let me get a gulp of water here. These are conditions. Shortly after the onset of widespread starvation in 1845-1846, A new wave of proselytism appeared, involving a more intense campaign of evangelization. Its Society for the Irish Church Missions was organized and funded in Britain in 1849 and focused its energy specifically on Connemara. The choice of Connemara by the Irish Church Missions was no accident. Excuse me. A remote and unknown region until 1800 or so, Connemara had only recently been open to the influences of the modern world with the appearance of new estates, new roads, and new villages. And it had become a select Irish destination for wealthy Protestant gentry. The Connemara Christian Committee was established in 1836, and by 1839 it had plans underway for a colony there. These same characters were also leaders of the Society for the Conversion of the Jews. Evangelicals in Connemara subscribed to premillennialism. This is important. This carried their interpretation of the Bible to the extreme, where they believed that events of human history were scheduled according to divine providence, and that the sequence of these events was outlined in the scriptures, particularly in the book of Revelation. The millennium would occur only after certain conditions had been fulfilled. Foremost among these were the conversion of the Jews and the destruction of the Antichrist. The Antichrist being, in their eyes, the Roman Catholic Church. So what the premillennialists sought was nothing less than the complete removal of Catholic influence everywhere within Britain and Ireland. And to their way of thinking, the Great Hunger was nothing less than God's punishment of a sinful people. Their duty was clear. They must make Ireland part of God's kingdom by wrenching it from the grasp of Rome. The movement wisely selected 2 Irish-speaking converts to serve as its first missionaries, one of whom was a former Catholic priest. And Connemara soon became saturated with mission stations, church schools, and scripture readers, all funded by money raised in England. The new offensive gained serious momentum in the spring of 1848. Its evangelical supporters saw it as a breakthrough that they had long been waiting for, enabling victims of the Great Hunger to finally search for answers beyond the Roman Catholic Church. The term Silver Monday started showing up in conversations, standing for the shilling that was given out by landlords to those who had attended Protestant services at the Church of Ireland on the day before. But there was a different, equally convincing picture of the true conditions that existed in the west of Ireland, and the sufferings inflicted by disease and starvation, as well as the harmful workings of these evangelical missionaries. That story is told in the letters of Catholic priests, pleading for help from remote western districts, where homes have been reduced to charnel houses of death, and where the starving and the dispossessed wandered about like walking skeletons, where landlords leveled the cottages of hundreds of their parishioners, and where members of the Catholic flock perished by the thousands. Priests told of how, in the midst of this deprivation, proselytizers would go from cabin to cabin, offering food and money and clothing to the naked and to the starving, on condition of their converting to Protestantism. And a number of desperate parents were compelled to send their children to these schools. At the peak of the hunger, many Catholic kids attended, for they had no other refuge. The kids were starving to death, and rather than letting their children die, the parents submitted. And in closing, I'm going to tell a rare story that has a happy ending amid the countless tales of misery and woe that doing this research shows you, hits you every day with. It seems that a ceremony took place in the Protestant church in Drumkeen, where the Bishop Robert Daly of Cashel converted a church full of repentant Catholics, assembled by a local clergyman, the Reverend Darby, The converts, or so it appeared, had shown up for the occasion because they had been promised new clothing in return. They received the clothing and went through the ceremony as agreed, but the following Sunday, however, they attended Mass at the Catholic chapel situated nearby, naturally sporting their new duds and publicly claiming that hunger and cold was what made them engage in the fraud in the first place. The Reverend Darby, incensed, set about taking legal action against the individuals involved in order to get the clothing back, but the converts would have none of it. They claimed that they had fulfilled their part of the bargain by simply showing up for the Protestant service, and therefore were entitled to their reward. And, incredibly, the courts agreed. So that's that. I have, before I finish, this is, I'm going to leave this, people want to see it. If I've got a letter here from the Ancient Order of Hibernians, Division 5 in Suffolk County, New York, addressed to the Vatican, and requesting that the Vatican beatify all of the people who died of starvation rather than take the soup. So if you want to take a look at it, I'll have it over on the table. Thank you.
Okay, just one more quick thing from me. Remember at the beginning I said that I hoped to find something good going on in Ireland before the famine. Well, as we know now, that really wasn't the case. However, I did find one good thing, relatively speaking, of course. The Great Famine is memorialized in numerous locations, not only in Ireland, but also in other parts of the world, where large populations have descended from Irish immigrants. In the 1990s, Ireland commemorated the 150th anniversary of the Great Famine, and British Prime Minister Tony Blair apologized for the failure of past British governments to adequately address the crisis. And this is the good part, I think. Ireland has been at the forefront of famine relief, and its people have given more to the fundraising efforts of Live Aid per head of population than any other nation in the world. So, Erin go Bra. We're going to listen to one more song, and then Marie's going to come up and talk about Brexit.
everybody for coming tonight. And we've talked about Brexit a lot. I'm not gonna go over any of the facts and figures. If you have any questions, Don Degnan would gladly answer. He's answered a lot of questions for me. When Brexit first came around in 2017, I picked Don up, we were driving down. I said, Don, I said, this could be it. This could be when they're gonna get reunited. And
He
then,
needs more jet fuel if he's gonna do that.
well, it's possible. I believe it's still possible that Ireland could be united, that this could do it. And the reason for the song, I'll tell you, a few weeks ago, one of the women here in the club organized a trip to Boston, and we took the train. We had a lot of fun. We really had a lot of fun, laughs, and we're sitting in this pub and enjoying ourselves, and the music was playing, and they played this song. And I thought, oh my God, talk about putting a wet blanket on a fun time. You know, you hear the song, my eyes fill up. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, what can I do? I mean, look what, you know, Plunkett did, and Grace, and all of the signatories that put their life on the line. They died, and still it hasn't been achieved, and all over the years. And then all the things that the English have done, we've talked about it. Bloody Sunday. Then the Good Friday Agreement came up, and so yeah, we're gonna everything's gonna be great. And so it started to be, and the economy's been great for you know, north and south. 30,000 people a day travel from the north to the south to work, and it's like one country. But the atrocities that have affected Ireland by England, they've not been brought to justice. There's lawyers, there's Bloody Sunday, there's the attacks on the pubs. Jim had mentioned one attack that killed several innocent people, and when they investigated, the weapons that were used were from MI6 or MI2, I don't know what it is, it's the CIA agency in England. That's where the weapons came from, so it's just so obvious, and it just really makes me mad. And I heard that song, and I'm like, what can I do? And I thought about a letter writing campaign. So I talked to Kathy. I said, well, I think about a letter writing campaign. At the very same time, coincidentally, the American Brexit Committee set out letters and emails to all of us suggesting a letter writing campaign. And they came up with the letters, and they told us how to do it, to send it to print the letters out, sign them with your name and your address on the letters, and send them to all the representatives in our state, not just the ones that meet our district, but all of them. They need their mail flooded with this. And if you haven't heard about the American Brexit Committee, go online. They're looking for members. They have 100 now, 100 members. They're probably more since I looked, but it doesn't. To join just means you're on their email list, and you're listed as a member. So you're a member, aren't you?
Nope.
No. Well, it's very easy. I mean, you don't have to do anything.
I
You don't
will.
pay any dues. But they're trying to go in, you know, when they go to meet with the politicians and say, you know, all these people are behind this. Representative Neal in Massachusetts has been a good advocate, and so has Courtney. And my sister, who lives in Stonington, never fails to tell me that I had got her, I bugged her, and I said, you know, send some emails to these guys, and she did. And the next month, Courtney mentioned Brexit in his newsletter, and then he just did last month too. He mentioned Brexit and how he's concerned for how the Irish and how they could possibly be hurt. So I thought to myself, well, you know, back in Kilmainham when all the men were killed, and if you've never been there, you should go because it's very touching. They died, you know, and here I am, you know, my phone is in my pocket, all this, you know, modern stuff. I'm not hurting, and these men gave up their lives, and this woman lived her whole life without ever marrying anybody again, carrying on the fight until she passed away in 1969. So this is what we can do. We can sign these letters. They're over there. They're for all our representatives in Rhode Island. We've supplied the envelopes. We've supplied the stickers. I think I've hit most of you already, but if I haven't, please don't leave this room. We've barred the doors, so you can't leave anyway until you sign over there, and I appreciate it. If I'm being a pest, I'm sorry. It's really, it felt to me like this is something we can do, you know, this is really something, and it can make a difference, it can really make a difference. I worked for Cicilline for a couple years, but it wasn't really a fit for me, but I do know that you can call them, and they have a computer system, like you call and leave a message on Monday mornings, I used to do it. Pick it up, listen to it, and I have the computer in front of me, and I get the person's name, and if you were their constituent, your name would come up, and then what you said would go in. So at the end of the week, we'd all get a report. 70 people called about this, or 60 people called about that. They're interested, they wanna know. And I mean, I really enjoyed working for Cicilline, and I really felt, as sincere as politicians can be, he is, you know, sincere, he was really concerned about it. And so I'm just asking you all, and whatever you can do, emailing too is good, telephoning is good. I think we when we did a Brexit talk the last time, we had a script here.
Yep.
So you can
Call, yep.
Yeah, pick up the phone and call
And
and
it's
leave
just a
a message.
voicemail, you leave a
Yep.
voicemail?
Yep, you didn't have to talk to a person. So, whatever you can do, and I just wanna thank you for that, and I don't know, Don, I mean, I think it's still possible. I think it's
It
possible,
is indeed, sure it is.
but,
Not without letters, though.
not without letters, right? We're paying for the stamps, we're giving you the stickers. If we're out of envelopes, there's plenty of letters, sign it. Also, what we have over there, Mavis printed up some letters on the 1916 letterhead. And you're here, so you're a member, so there you go. You can sign the 1916.
yep.
Sign more, and we'll take care of mailing them, okay? Thank you. Any questions? Don's happy to answer.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming. Watch your email. Jimmy will be sending out emails not only about the 1916 committee, our next meeting, our next whatever is next on the agenda, but also a list. He's trying to compile a list of all the St. Patrick's Day activity. I think one already went out, did it?
It did.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Yep, so he'll probably keep that up, so just keep your eye on the email. Enjoy St. Patrick's Day, go down to the pub, enjoy the music, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Raffle tickets, raffle
Oh, raffle tickets, again, $5, good prizes.
Are you all set here? Thank you
Never
very much.
asked a question to go.
No, she didn't. No, I'm good. I'll take care of it. I mean, I'm not, the 1960. Okay, great.
Nicely done, Bob.
I'll see you on. That's interesting. How are you? I'm good, thank you.
We've become a team.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, I thought.
Yes.
I mean, not particularly what I'm saying, but the whole thing, reading about it, it was,
Never had. Did we tell you two about the visit to the Manor, English Manor House
That's a 1960,
in
that's
County
nice.
Roscommon? Maureen and I were just driving around, and saw English Manor House. This historical museum sort of went. And it was you know, like John Astor. The guy had built so that his servants could go from one wing of the house to the other without seeing. But they also had a list of all that had taken the landlord's offer of passage to a room. 150 families. 6 of them were being delinquent. Really? So we think that's where they left. That might be it. The reason I'm bringing this up is there was a wonderful exhibit on the local bishop who had raised the British. I don't remember what punishment they received, but he had been a particular thorn in the side of the British during this time, denouncing murder, denouncing Shaw.
I didn't want to interrupt your conversation, but I'm Charlotte Fishner, and we talked about the Molly alarms. I wasn't able to come to the meeting, yes, and
Molly Maguire.
I mean Molly, yeah, not Molly. And since then, I did. I grew up in the region where the Molly Maguires were, and when I was growing up, nobody ever talked about it. But after I left, the local editor of the newspaper published a book about it. So that's when people started talking about it. And since I spoke with you, I found out that my great-grandfather came to this country in 1850. And he was enlisted into the Civil War and is also listed as having deserted.
Yeah.
And then my other great-grandfather was in the Civil War. I've been to the grave and there's a mark on it. And he stayed long enough for his widow to eventually get a pension. And
That's who fought the Civil War.
we got both things going there. But the great-grandfather that stayed in the war had come from Wales. So the one from Ireland, I think, came from Sligo. Yeah, and the other thing was, there was someone named John Malloy who was, I think he was brought to trial in the Mauling McGuire, but he was acquitted.
Really?
But I don't know if it was him, because it could be a very common name.
Yeah.
And there's,
Plus the records aren't too good either. You know, you gotta dig
Is this Eastern Pennsylvania?
he is in Shenandoah, and the trials were in Pottsville and a few other places.
You know, there was so much I didn't talk about. I mean, that the Molly McGuire went through against the vigilantes and you know, the Gowan had all the money in the world, so he could buy. Everybody had a price. And that's why they did what they did, because they were getting slaughtered, let alone at work. Forget work, you know?
And the testimony was just all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, somebody saw somebody's, you know, animals or something, the person never owned it. You know, there was just some really crazy things.
Very interesting.
And I used to actually go by the St. Nicholas Breaker. And I don't know if it's still there, because I haven't really been back there for a while, but that was mentioned in the book,
Right.
that the local guy. And I did read some of the book that you recommended, but I haven't been able to get through all of it, because some of it's tedious.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But it's kind of thorough.
Yes. So, anyway, why I said Molly Malone's, I have no idea. I think it's the age.
But you know what's been amazing probably? McFarlane.
What?
The rat.
Oh, yes.
I mean, he went in there and he won him over a hook, line, and sinker.
He was in my hometown. It's not
And he, you know, with him, you followed him, the next time he popped up to me was the turn of the century, Idaho, the Bill Haywood trial, or the Coeur d'Alene.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, with the guy Clarence Darrow was the lawyer for Bill Haywood. He got some trumped up charge where he killed somebody else.
So you really have
And then
gotten
the
into
following, yeah,
this.
he was undercover rat for that one too. Yes, Don.
Pat, that was an excellent job.
Yeah.
That was a very good job.
I think that is a big problem.
Well, that's my intent. It was an excellent job.
A lot of fun to
This is a good
research. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, keep going.
Good for you. Don't stop.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, and it was nice to meet you. And I'm Charlotte Fisher. And what's that?
What are you doing?
No, that's true.
You know what it is? And they just sort of
It's so complex. I mean, you can't do it justice in, 15 minutes. Well, that's very true. That's very true. I don't know if you ever heard me talk about my experience with soup. Back in 1998, I gave a lecture, and what I did, I had gotten the recipe for government soup, and my then girlfriend, now wife, made it for me. I went to Andrea's on Thayer Street, and I bought a bag of barley, and which is one of the ingredients in the soups that they make. So they sold me a bag of barley for a couple of bucks, and you know, barley was one of the primary ingredients in the soup. So I had my wife make, I think it was probably a quart of soup for me. And what I did, I went out, I remember distinctly, Friday night, we went out, we had a very nice dinner. I had a steak, much of which I brought home with me. And I said, okay, when you make the soup, cut up the pieces of steak very small, and throw them in there with onions and barley, and make the broth, so to speak. And all I did for the next 2 days.
You used to cut those out and send them to me on a regular basis. You need to do that.
Yes, yes.
You need to,
Plain
there
tea
have
with
been
no
a couple
sugar.
of
And to eat this soup,
I hate to laugh.
once a
Ever
day.
since the
And I'll tell you,
Projo,
I brought down the house
it's
when I
years
said,
now.
It's been
on a
years.
Saturday night, I had this soup,
Well, you're
and I
required
said,
to write
you wouldn't believe the number of fast food commercials there
Finest
are
literature.
on a Saturday night.
They are.
Every 5 minutes, they're trying to sell you a hamburger. And here am I,
They're wonderful.
thinking about what my next meal will occur.
My
And
nose is
the
red.
first day that I tried it, it was like very bad onion soup, very thin, very watery onion soup. And I, no word of a lie, I counted the pieces of meat in the soup, the pieces of beef in the soup. And then the next day, when it had a chance to work a little bit, it was a little bit better. It was a little more flavorful, a little thicker. But the thing about it was that it made the day seem awfully long. When I knew that I was waiting for my only meal of the day, it made the day seem absolutely interminable.
You know what I was
So that was my soup
having?
experience.
And Mavis, I was trying to remember
No.
the date.
But the fact that I
Actually
mentioned this
sent out the copy.
in the text of the famine memorial, the fact that the British
And I
government
think I
was
have a
able to
copy
feed
of that.
3 billion people a day in a country as primitive as Ireland was, with such a poor road system and canal system and transportation system. The fact that they were able to do that is remarkable. And they did that. They did that during the months of the operation of the soup kitchens. They did that, and that's an extraordinary logistical feat. Well, I think what the Quakers did is remarkable. And I mean, I mentioned them too, but they really deserve. Well, I didn't know
Strange.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
I used to be able to open
You
this
hit
up
the nail
so
right
I
on the head.
could
There
see
really
the
were 3 different permutations of soup.
Didn't want to do that anymore.
There
It's
was
only
the
going back to
government soup, and there
1929,
was the super soup,
when I know I've got
which was anything but super.
Mary Quigley
But
and
I think you've got to make those
Daniel
distinctions.
Dunnigan
Actually, I took that with my phone.
getting
Really awful, absolutely
I
awful.
have this genealogy that the
But
cousins
congratulations.
Drive yours.
Well,
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
she was, you know, one of these
Oh, good, well, I guess Mom didn't make it.
Let me just say that.
I'm heading down there tonight
obsessed
after,
with this.
Did you see that Ted Rourke was down to Stonington on a statement?
He's in,
Well, my mother's actually.
he's downstairs. Yeah, he said, there's a lawyer in your office now. I know.
That's, she does what he's my mother's cottage and my sister's. It's Stonington.
Used to be
Right,
the,
not by the water, I
Texas
don't think I
City.
took you there, but I might have drove by it.
I actually went down this place, so that it changed my form, so that.
View Restaurant.
Yeah, then I was like driving around.
Nancy's too.
It's gone.
No.
Oh, yeah, it's gone, it burned.
Yeah, I know, then I think she told her, I was at what time or what?
Yeah.
And then I was, when I did go, I was dying, he used to film my hair, so then I went to what song he was, and Eileen said, listen,
Yeah, everybody's gone. Ted, this lawyer at the buses
Yeah, that's my hangout, that's, I mean,
is, no, it's,
yeah, but
I know, but Ed, the real
one day we took a ride.
beautiful thing about that conference room being a massage parlor,
Kathy, got,
who really wanted it to be a parlor all his years of practice.
down there.
It would have been
March the Parade.
perfect.
Did you hear that, Kathy Green?
Smiling
March the
down
Parade
on
this
that
year.
one.
Yeah,
It really is.
Yep.
I came over the day we put the chairs out. Remember that? She did, taking the chair.
Yep, very flowery and it's interesting. It all begins, and she took all my, I know, of course, so they went to a good home, and I
Good.
do not.
So are you working this weekend?
Even better.
It was a good one, it was very fun.
Sunday morning.
Not fun enough to try, and I don't know how those things got it across the
The great big one you left with her? I thought you were bringing that someplace else.
I looked it up, and it might
Oh,
be
yeah,
places
yeah, yeah.
you have.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's between the plant and the forest. I just don't have one.
yeah, you're
Pick up my
Catholic.
goods here.
Okay, how you doing?
Good. Hey, thanks for coming, folks.
Oh, great to
Thank
see
you
you,
for
Pat, a
doing it.
wonderful paper.
I promise not to, I promise not to have any more adventures the next time we go out to the theater with my driving.
Or our candy eating.
Huh?
Or our candy eating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
When do we
Your
go
turn or
again?
mine?
I know, I think we're up.
That's coming up, I think, in about a week.
Is it?
No.
I think so.
No, there's one in, none in February, it's in March.
Yeah, well, it's the end of February, honey.
No, it isn't. The 22nd.
Today's the 20, what, second?
20-something.
I don't think it's even on my calendar.
But I felt terrible about driving like that. You know, it was a fascinating conversation. Forgive me, I don't remember.
Well, we were sort of.
We were in lane 3 and we should have been in lane 1.
Oh, that.
We were heading for New York.
That little tour
We were
took
heading for New York
of
instead of
Route
Warren.
1.
You don't remember.
Good.
Yes.
Don't remind us.
I guess I
This is the beauty of having us for friends. Whatever you do, we're not gonna remember it.
Okay. Forget what I said.
Didn't happen.
We're going down to get tea.
I think we'll be heading home soon. Okay, what can I do?
I think not much, honey, I don't think. So, yeah, but is it, well, if I tell you that the way to roll it up, you're gonna like it.
Hey, I'll catch up with you guys. I'm gonna run off. Yeah,
Okay.
you gonna hang around a little bit?
Yeah,
Because I just bought some tickets. I bought some tickets for some of them raffles. They say raffle them off. You can hear my name. All right, I mean, if you're gonna be around.
Okay.
I'm leaving. I put my phone number on it.
yeah, that's all right.
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
because if they don't get you, they'll get me and I'll get.
okay. I don't even know what I put them in on over there, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna run. I'm tired.
I'll give you a call, we'll go get a coffee.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
All right. How you doing? You retired? Some boat sleep?
Thanks for coming, Roland.
You're welcome, Pat. Enjoy it.